I was Danny's friend. He had a lot of friends. On behalf of the Pike family, thank you all for coming. I know it does all of us good to see so many friends here. A lot of love in this room. When I was asked to deliver the eulogy, I was pretty blown away. Danny used to have a nickname for me, Speaker. And there was no other answer I could give. So I'm going to share what I wrote with you now, and I hope it does my friend justice. I have tasked myself with writing something meaningful for my dear friend. I started by asking myself, what is meaningful? It's something that in our day-to-day can be hard to keep in perspective and even sometimes hard to reach. Because the unknown can be meaningful, we must occasionally dig deep and purge ourselves through the distractions and bias to find our own truth. If the unknown is studied and knowledge is gained, that gain makes it meaningful. At least I know it did for Danny, because the man had an incredible thirst for knowledge. He questioned and researched everything. He applied himself and dug deeper than most. He often found his own truth, and I believe this made him feel deeper and more intensely than most. Aside from gained knowledge, what is inherently known is also meaningful. The greatest things are often right in front of us. The people we know and love, the music we know and love. Of course, these things are meaningful because they shape who we are. These things were certainly inherent in Danny, and he was shaped into a fantastic human being. Not only was he shaped by his knowledge, his influences, and loved ones, but he was also of the rare breed that can shape and make themselves. To make yourself is not an easy thing to do, but Danny was truly an individual, one that kept his own moral compass and did a damn good job of it. And so sometimes, as Danny often did, he must question and research to find what is meaningful. But then there are those bits of information that when we stumble upon them, they make so much perfect, clear sense that it already seems familiar to us. It connects on a primitive level. You can call them epiphanies maybe, but when those realizations come, we find that we have known it all along. Some things are just deeply seated that way. Like when we sense that we truly are all one. We and our subjective consciousness exist separate from the vast universe full of energy, just as a drop of water exists separate from the vast ocean. Even though they exist separately, it's all part of the same thing. Both the separate drop and the ocean are made of water. So when that drop finds its way to the ocean, it becomes part of that ocean. It does not cease to exist. It's still there in the ocean and also in every other drop it touched. Carl Sagan said that we are all made of star stuff. And as Danny's energy now journeys back to the stars from which it came, we can be sure that he left his mark on this world. Everyone that came in contact with him, whether by chance or intent, was positively affected by his radiance. We all knew Danny. We know that he was a beloved son, brother, and dear friend to many. Spending any period of time with him made him a friend. It's just who he was. I myself can really not remember a time when I heard Danny speak badly about another person unless it was in a playful way. I do not ever remember him intentionally projecting any kind of hate towards anyone. He was a passive, loving, kind-hearted person, and that was what he projected. His smile and demeanor were infectious. It didn't matter what was going on with me. If I was down or stressed out, when I saw Pikey, my mood lightened. His sense of humor was an entire spectrum, From dry, random senselessness to clever, insightful commentary. It seems like a lot of what we did together was laugh. We also know that Danny was 1/5 of the greatest metal band that this town has ever seen. Black Dahlia. I'm sure most would agree that it was a special period in time when that band was active here. And it's a space and time that I am grateful to have been a part of. It won't be in history books, but it's noteworthy to us, and trust me, that does mean something. Danny was an amazing musician and songwriter. With an electric guitar, he was like a clockwork machine performing some impossibly human task with his own blend of style, accuracy, and specific tone. With an acoustic, he could create a dreamscape and incite synesthesia. He played his music like he meant it, telling a story that ordinary language could not tell. I know his music has made a lasting impression on most of us, and it will never be forgotten. He was also an incredible writer. I was lucky enough to have a couple of classes with him while we were both attending USU a little while back. He was so excited about his journalism class. He had his own little office space where he could write. He wrote a lot of articles for the school paper, and they were good. I read every one, and in all of them, even if the subject was mundane, I could still hear his powerful and unique voice as a writer. I don't know if I've ever seen him happier than in those times, playing with Black Damp, and then again while exploring journalism. He showed incredible talent in his expressions, in his music, his writing, and even in his own character. He would take his many influences and reflect them back in his own way. Just as the moon reflects sunlight, he would create his own glow. And he truly did shine bright. Anytime you saw or heard something that he created, you knew it was uniquely his, because he took what he loved and reflected it back for all to see, and it rarely went unappreciated. His level of intelligence never failed to impress me. Sometimes I was even surprised by his depth of knowledge on a certain subject. Something relating to geology or astronomy, or even just something trivial would come up. He would state some kind of fact about it, and I'm just like, how do you know this, man? Like, where do you find the time to study this? Sometimes I wouldn't believe him. I'd have to Google it, fact check it, but he was always right. Anytime I had a question, he seemed to be able to answer it like a walking encyclopedia. And he was always willing to share. Not to try and convert anyone to his way of thinking, but just to put the information out there for what it was and let people think for themselves. Two words come to mind when attempting to describe my dear friend: precision and detail. He had a great appreciation for these things, and it showed in everything he did. He always recognized and appreciated the work and skill that went into something. He valued and admired true professionalism in any craft, because in his own, he too was a true professional. In his music, in his study of various branches of science, and in anything else he tried his hand at, he was precise and detailed. He also had a way of picking out the small, subtle aspects of something that made it great. Whether it was a song or a piece of cinema, he would find things that others would probably never notice. For example, in a film, he could point out certain characterizations or just even one line with a certain vocal inflection, or in music it might be a triplet or a pinch harmonic, a subtle crescendo, and how it all happened in the perfect spot with perfect timing that made it all work just right. He would bring these details to light, and every time he pointed something like that out to me, I would then be able to kind of see it through his eyes and feel that same appreciation for it that he was feeling. And I thank him for sharing that ability with me. We can all take inspiration from the passion that Danny showed towards the things and people he loved. Because in this world, you must find what you love and love it with everything you've got. Do what you do, because if there's anything worth doing, it's worth doing right. I know a lot of us remember a few months back during the presidential primaries, Danny took up supporting Bernie Sanders, and being the total professional that he was, he made sure everyone knew about the caucus, where it was located, how to vote. He even went in and tried to get a spot as a county delegate. I can honestly say that I don't think any other of my friends would have done that. He was a total professional. And he got behind that cause because he thought it would make this a better place and improve our lives. It's not like he was out for any personal gain or just to make this a better place for himself. It was for everyone. There was no selfish intent there. And I don't mention his support for Bernie as something really outstanding in his life. There are so many. That's why I just mention it as one of endless examples I could have used that can be a testament to who he was. Constantly spreading love, knowledge, and well-being. Another goal I had in writing this was to not only speak about Danny, but speak for him. And one thing I can be sure to convey at this point is, it's okay. Over the past few weeks, in moments of despair, I have sensed something in an almost extrasensory way, and what it's saying is, it's okay. Knowing Danny, who he was, how he thought, I can infer that the one thing he would want to communicate to us all is, it's okay. You see, we share this conscious reality, yet experience it subjectively. And from our own subjective view, we are limited in our comprehension and communication. His experience, his view, has now changed from subjective to comprehensive. All questions are answered, all conundrums solved, all anxieties lifted. Danny was not a religious person, and though I think that his beliefs were more complex than to simply say he was an atheist, for all intents and purposes, that is what he called himself. He was never afraid to tell things like he saw them, and so I must be equally unafraid in speaking for him. And so with all due respect to different beliefs and happiness that people find in them, I cannot now say that my friend is entering a set of pearly gates. He may not have retained his physical form. He may not be waiting in some paradise to say hello. No need to say anything. No need for the English language. But we can still find comfort. The energy that made Danny the individual that he was is still here, in this planet, in this realm, in our reality. The law of the conservation of energy has been precisely measured and found to be accurate, verifiable, and consistent throughout time and space. This means that every molecule that made his body, every ion and form of energy that made his thoughts and his mind, all that he was, still exists. It may change forms, but it will never be gone. He exists throughout the universe, and he exists in every one of us. We love you, Pikey.